And I think, yeah, it was third year, not at the very beginning. I was very nervous at the beginning of my third year. But I think maybe halfway through my third year or so is when I really realized, wow, this is going to happen, and I have something to contribute. Everyone has different qualities that allows them to contribute to, improving the care of the patients. And you start to realize what it is that you bring to the table and how your own unique qualities will help you be the best doctor possible.
Yeah, well, when I was in medical school, I had the great good fortune, my wife and I, of having 2 children. And that changed the way I thought what it meant to be a doctor. Because partly we were patients. We were the ones that people were working up and doing things to and so forth. But partly, to be there when one of your children is born casts everything going on around here in a completely different light. I'm not, by the way, suggesting every second-year student should have a baby, but try to tap in, maybe one of your grandparents falls ill. Maybe a parent or sibling has been injured. Try to remember what it was like to be in those situations, to see it from the patient's point of view or from the family's point of view. And then you discover in the course of your interactions with patients little hints, little openings that if you're paying attention give you a chance to bring that perspective to life in the way you take care of these people. It's just not just, do you walk in, do you shake hands, do you call them by name, do you try to position yourself at eye level? That's all great. But do you try to understand that experience, what they're going through, as deeply as you can? And very frequently that means tapping into your own life experiences. And when you do that, you're bringing your life, sometimes your suffering, to life in a way that enables you to improve somebody else's experience. And that's an immense privilege.
I really do believe that, we're blessed to be in medicine. It's an interesting job. It's, it's more than a job, right? It's a calling and a way of life. And, every day is different. That's the beautiful thing about it as well. And no 2 days are ever the same. So if you're just open to those experiences, I think you could find those inspirations every single day.
In emergency medicine, we have the stage of the world, and we get to see all kinds of people under the worst duress of their life, and we really peel the onion and see the inside, not of just the doctor, not of just the patients, but also the doctors and the nurses and the people we work with. And you really learn what makes people up when they're going through heroin withdrawal, or they feel that the end of their life should happen soon and they want to take control of that and commit suicide, or someone that thinks he or she's having a heart attack. And another beautiful thing is some of these patients come in with threats to life and they feel that their life might be in jeopardy. And with what I do in research, I approach them and say, I know you're scared and you might even think you're going to die, but I have a research project that I'm interested in asking you to be part of. And by being part of this research, it may or may not help you, but what it'll really do is help us be smarter to take care of other people. And these people are brave enough and courageous enough to see above themselves, even when they're about ready to die or think they are, and to help other people. And that altruism is really, truly inspiring.
So, I think one of the great things about being in academics is actually getting a chance to work with medical students, residents, fellows, because they keep you on your toes. They ask you questions that you're like, wow, that's really a good question. Most of the times we know the answer, sometimes we don't. But we also, as physicians, one of the major things we do is communicate with patients and families. And I distinctly remember a time where we had a patient in the ICU who wasn't doing well, and the family was frustrated because the patient wasn't doing well. And we ended up having to have a family meeting. And it turns out one of the pulmonary fellows sat there and said, hey, I'll run the meeting. I was a little bit taken aback because I figured this was not going to be easy. This was going to be a challenging conversation. And he walked in the room and he conducted the meeting like he was a 20-year pro. I was so impressed. I didn't think I could do as good a job as he, answering the questions, being as respectful as he could be. As the patient's family members would get frustrated, he was able to sort of bring down the tension. He acknowledged the fact that they were having challenges, but was able to actually have a very fruitful conversation. And then we walked out of the room and the patient's family was satisfied, and I think we achieved the goals of care that the patient and the family probably ultimately wanted. Turns out he was so good he ended up becoming staff. His name's Gabe Boslett, and he's actually now one of the pulmonary critical care staff and is actually in charge of their fellowship program.
So the guy's he was the chairman of neurology. Very proper and formal, some would say strict leader. And a lot of people feared him because, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a fair amount of teaching that involved some degree of intimidation. I mean, just like in high school, the wrestling coach that taught geometry, we feared the guy. It was awful, but it was great teacher. So, I mean, it's that sort of thing. So, but this guy is interesting. As a junior resident on rounds with patients, we'd have medical students, we have residents, we have the patient, and he'd be there. And I noticed something very meaningful. That is that this guy, he would treat the students as if they knew something and they were functioning in as an important member of the team, and that actually their opinion, their thoughts actually mattered just as much as anybody else's. So I like that idea. They may have less experience, but we're all smart, everybody around here. And some people are engineers, some are English majors, some are biology people, some are scientists. But the idea is to recognize that, gee, these people are really smart. Their view of this patient and what's going on, how to piece it together and get it formatted and understand what's going on, and then see the opportunities to intervene. That's everything. And why not take advantage of that? So he was able to actually make it clear that if you're the junior student, your thoughts matter, and they matter a lot. And the discussion has to be where we're all equal in there. I think in patient care, to be honest with you, we're all equal. So there are different levels of experience, but we all have these abilities to try to get involved and appreciate, understand, and fit things together optimally. And because almost nothing in medicine is a clean, clear-cut, slam dunk diagnosis or management. Almost nothing. Like the patients this morning. I mean, it requires you to think through what's going on and how do you put this together, how do you actually help these people. So he was able to make students feel important and not feel like an afterthought. And that's important. I think it's huge because they are important.
To be more patient and open-minded with a certain subset of patients. I think when I look back, I remember my third year, and I had kind of a bad attitude that certain people that didn't do things the way I thought they should do were maybe not bad people, but certainly were frustrating to me. And for example, a guy who comes in to the emergency room and his feet are all a mess and he has bad infections in them or whatever. I think that at that time I was so focused on the acute illness that I didn't delve into his social history enough and find out that this guy's homeless, and the reason he's homeless is because he had a mental health problem and his family wouldn't take him in, and now he's got frostbite on his feet, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that when I was 25 or 27, when I was a second-year medical student, I was 23. And so at that point in time, I thought everybody should be fit and in shape and have a good diet and not get sick. And so I think I tended to blame patients for their own illness too much. And if I could go back in time and give myself advice, I'd say, you know, it's probably not necessarily entirely their fault that they're ill. You know, as a society, we failed somehow these people. And I think that that's really true even today. You know, 30 years later, it's still true. 40 years later, it's still true. A lot of the illnesses that people have aren't necessarily their own faults. Even things like alcoholism and drug abuse and things that we tend to think about as self-abuse sorts of problems, I really don't think that they are anymore. I think they're failures of our society to provide things that they really need and deserve as human beings. So that's probably the thing that I would do, give you the same advice.
I think the learners that have impressed me the most are those that are willing to take a step on their own, that don't wait for me to tell them what to do. I can think of a couple who, you know, one was seeing a patient of mine in the office, and the patient was, I guess, having a very difficult time, was crying and tearful. And even before I walked in the room, my student had gone out, gotten the social worker, come back. They had already had a long discussion. And kind of by the time I got there, they had things figured out already. So kind of decreased the amount that I had to do, but I was very impressed that she took the initiative to say, I'm not going to wait around. I know what needs to happen here. Let me go find that social worker and let's work this out. So I'm impressed by the ability of our students to reach beyond, to not wait to be told what to do.
I think that in terms of your own well-being, you'll get that from your patients. You worry that you'll be tired, you'll be frightened at times, you'll worry about someone endlessly. But what will inspire you will be your patients. If you're fortunate enough to teach residents and medical students, that will keep you going. And I often tell them, my residents and medical students, that it is their enthusiasm, their joy for medicine that makes me strong and makes the days absolutely a joy.
One of the most important lessons that I've learned being a physician that I would tell myself as a reminder earlier in my career is make sure that you're kind to everyone you interact with. And I just think that's so important for so many reasons, but just to remember to be kind, and at the end of the day, there may not be other things that you can offer other people, but your kindness and a helping hand is something you can always give.
I'll tell you the advice I got, which I didn't appreciate. I was in a basketball league, and one of my classmates came on a drive, clocked me, cut my eye open, and I ended up in the emergency department. So I'm draped, leaning back, just my gash opened, and the emergency department resident faculty came in and said, "So you want to be a doctor, huh?" And I started to get very nervous. I wish I never would have become a doctor. I should have gone to business school. Do you know how hard I have to work to make the money? And I said, "Sir, if you're unhappy, you could go and get someone else who likes their job to sew up my face." "Oh, I'll sew it up fine." And I realized I really don't like negativity. And that kind of eeyore-ness and dissatisfaction with your station in life is inexcusable to me. If he doesn't want to be there, he shouldn't. And if I didn't feel a sense of joy and growth, I wouldn't be here. And it really helped me to attempt to be positive and enjoy what I do, but also to project that out so that others get a sense of the joy and the possibilities of what medicine can offer them.
Physicians, most of the time, only get negative when they're confronted with problems with the system. it usually doesn't have to do with the patient. And so I think if you can always redirect people to the fact that the reason why we're here is to take care of patients and to focus on patients, then I think that makes all the negativity go away, because you can't be negative about patients.